right, well, we're here today with one of my all-time most favorite food people on the planet in, the oasis of local food here in Athens County, and that's Matt Repaselic. And Matt has a long history with AceNet and the food sector in general, and he's in a great role right now at Ohio University. So maybe Matt, you can share a little bit of your background.
Right. So the way Leslie and I were introduced, at least on a business standpoint, was I had started a business a number of years ago that was a European hearthbreads bakery. And I had gone to AceNet for business advice and startup capital. And so we formed a partnership with their skills and abilities and financial backing, and was able to get a business off the ground, a local food business up and off the ground, that became very successful over the course of many years. Kind of became a little local fixture. It's interesting because, an operation of this size, you have a lot of the bureaucratic, we are a state institution, so you have the bureaucracy that you have to contend with. Plus then just the scale of the operation is quite a bit different. And, I always tell this story, my first day here that I started, I came out on the dock at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we have an enormous dock, and it is packed full of food. We have 3 semis that were up against the docks being unloaded, pallets as far as you can see on the docks being unloaded of food. And I looked at one of the guys running the forklift, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to last that's on the dock? And he looked at me like I was a moron, and he said, today? And I was like, oh, okay, and that really, it put things in perspective, just the sheer volume. So the part that has been good, as far as I would say the entrepreneurial connection to what we're currently doing, goes back to the networking and the connections more than anything, in that we know a lot of the people doing certain things that we could use as a resource. And so getting back in touch with those people and figuring out, okay, how can we incorporate that into our system? We'll see how that goes.
But you learned a lot in terms of financial management as a small business person.
Which correlates.
That's like totally translated.
It's all the same. That is one thing that is all the same. The numbers, whether you're a one-person operation, if it's a food business, you are doing the exact same things when it's an operation where you're feeding 8,000 people a day. It's exactly the same thing. We are still worried about the pennies. We're still worried. It is all exactly the same. It's just that the number on the paper has 4 extra digits. So a couple of things that are different for us is that, number one, we're a self-operated dining services. We're not under a contract like Sodexo or one of those things. The second thing that makes us unusual is that with our facilities, we already had intact from years and years ago the facility itself. So we had a vegetable processing department, we had a bakery that was pretty well equipped. They used to have their own meat fabrication facility. That unfortunately is completely gone. But the basic infrastructure was still here. Without that, this wouldn't have been possible. We get visits from a lot of other institutions who would like to do what we're doing, but if they had dismantled the operation previously and have to start from zero, it can be financially prohibitive. So we were really fortunate in that our basic infrastructure was here. So because of that, it started off with our rural location. We had to be more self-sufficient food-wise with the dining services operations from the beginning of time. So now, since the infrastructure was here, it was just a matter of kind of getting back to the roots of it. And we do process most all of our own vegetables from a raw state, whether it be lettuces, potatoes, cucumbers, all those things. We get in not in the value-added form that so many places do. We just get them in their raw, unadulterated form, and we process them for our specific needs. And so we have the facilities to do that. And that's also what has enabled us to utilize a lot of the local produce, is that we didn't really have to change our procedures too much. We just need to incorporate them into the stream. So it's been fairly successful. On the tour, you see that we have construction going on, and we're putting in a cook-chill facility that will open up some other avenues for us to utilize local products at the peak of the season, because unfortunately right now the peak of our local growing season is also the time that is our least demand at the university during the summer months, when our business is at its lowest because there aren't as many students on campus. So we have been working with what we had to make sauces, make for the value-added items that we can utilize throughout the rest of the year, but we're limited on space. Now with this new operation, the new facility that's being built with the cook chill, we'll be able to utilize big quantities of what's available seasonally and process it into a finished product that we can then store or freeze for the school year. And so that's going to extend our cycle of year-round availability for local things. We are going to increase our storage capacity. We have a fairly good freezer selection right now as far as space goes. So yes, we will take full advantage of what we have available and what is being added to the new operation.
Can you talk a little bit about the types of products that will be value added, or some of the local produce?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind that we'll be able to utilize, and this is where we kind of started to lay the groundwork, are tomatoes. That we can do. Right now, what we're doing is during the peak of the season, we're processing as much as we physically can.
Yeah, we're in tomato land here in southeastern Ohio, the home of salsa.
Yes, indeed. So what we do is we take during the peak of the season. Currently, we've been taking those tomatoes and making a base mix that can be utilized for soups, sauces, finished pasta products, whatever it might be. So we make a generic base from that then in the units can be configured to whatever the specific need is. So there's those items for sure that we'll be able to use. There's also good availability of potatoes locally, and we utilize those during the season, but we'll be able to do processing for those items that we can do finished products from that we can store or freeze. The other item that I see a huge volume of that we just unfortunately can't use due to the labor constraints that now hopefully this will alleviate are green beans. You see bushels and bushels and bushels of green beans at the auction, and there aren't too many places in town or the county that need them in this volume, but folks are growing them. And the labor for us to take those fresh green beans, clean them, process them, and then utilize them is prohibitive. Now with the new operations, hopefully that's something that we'll be able to put away, freeze, and be able to utilize throughout the rest of the year. That's what's catapulted, I think, our connections and the ability to do all these things locally was the produce auction. Having heard about it prior to actually going out there, our issue is with supply when we're talking about local items here, especially local produce, is our volume is so massive here that it was difficult to utilize efficiently a lot of the local goods when it would be brought to us in such small scale. It was really hard to incorporate into the bigger picture. With the produce auction, that really changed everything because we were able to source quantities that actually made an impact on our operation. And so from that, over the course of the last few years, the networking that's happened, the collaboration between actual growers has made a big difference because now they're producing things in quantities that really help us, and we're able to plan ahead as opposed to just seeing what's at the auction that week. Now they're saying, okay, we know you'll utilize this if we grow it and all that we can produce. So it's worked out really well, and every year it gets better and better for us. OU has been for many, many years dealing with local products and things, but it takes an effort, and if you don't have the connections or the networking abilities, it's a real struggle. And again, when you go back to kind of a bureaucratic end of things, when you have so many hoops to jump through to make something happen, any added hurdles, it's really easy just to say, forget it. I can do my one order a day with my one vendor and be done with it, and life is good. So having the connections that all start and still continue with ACENET and all the folks that deal with them, it has definitely expedited our process here.
And I think, you were one of our earlier entrepreneurs that we've worked with, so we've learned as much working with our entrepreneurs as
I'm sure,
we've shared over the years. But I think, having folks who really get that culture of deep reciprocity, who understand the relationship basis that, it's not like we all love each other and we're not sometimes competitors, but there's still a really interesting, I think, cooperative, collaborative spirit that has come out of the work in the last 15 or 20 years, whether it's the Athens Farmers Market or the work that ACENET, Community Food Initiatives, Rural Action does together. And, Matt, again, I just want to say you've been a real leader because you understand I think, the win-win of those relationships.
Well, you know, that was something that I worked for a chef, a German chef, years ago, and he was in a location. He had a beautiful restaurant, very, very successful, and he always was going over to competitors' restaurants and trying to encourage them to come to his area and open their shops, which he did. And so he ended up with all of these restaurants around him that were direct competitors to him. And I learned so much from him about this, and he said it is a win-win situation for all of us because it concentrates our business for everybody, gets everybody together. So from that experience, you know, that always stuck with me. And so working with TasteNet, it's the same idea. You know, we're all vying for the same dollars in some fashion, but everybody's found their unique niche. So that while people are in competition with each other, it's more that they're in collaboration with each other. And that's why, you know, when you go travel places and people have heard of Athens, and very often they've heard of the food culture we have here, is because of this. And if everybody was looking at it as purely a competitive thing and there wasn't this collaboration, there wouldn't be the overall success locally, I don't think. So it's been a big plus.